I was standing by the refreshment table at the Vancouver General Hospital Foundation Gala, balancing a glass of champagne I hadn't touched, when Mrs. Chen appeared beside me. She'd been my housekeeper for 12 years, but I'd never seen her at one of these events. Her husband had recently retired from VGH, so I assumed that's why she was here. "Mr. Mitchell," she said quietly, not looking directly at me. "Please, don't react to what I'm about to tell you. Just listen." I felt my hand tighten around the champagne flute. Mrs. Chen wasn't the dramatic type. In all our years together, she'd been nothing but steady, reliable, almost invisible in the way good help tends to be. If she was approaching me like this, something was very wrong. "Last Tuesday," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "I saw your son David at the house with a woman. They were taking photos of every room, professional photos, with a camera on a tripod. When I asked David what was happening, he said you'd asked him to get the house appraised for insurance purposes." My throat went dry. I hadn't asked David to do any such thing. "I didn't think much of it until yesterday," Mrs. Chen went on. "My daughter, she shows me how to use the computer, how to look at houses online. For fun, I search West Vancouver properties. And there it is, Mr. Mitchell, your house. Listed as coming soon on Sotheby's website. $3.2 million. The gala's live band was playing something upbeat, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. My house. The house Margaret and I had bought 42 years ago when David was just a baby. The house where we'd raised both our children. The house where Margaret had died 3 years ago, in our bedroom, with me holding her hand. "There's more," Mrs. Chen said. "2 weeks ago, I saw papers on the kitchen counter. David must have left them by accident. They were from a lawyer's office. Something about incompetency proceedings and guardianship. I didn't understand all the words, but I took a photo with my phone. I can show you." I wanted to tell her she was mistaken, that David would never do something like this. But even as the thought formed, I realized it would explain so many things that had been happening over the past few months. The keys that kept going missing. I'd blamed my age, thought maybe I was becoming forgetful, but they always reappeared in odd places, places I knew I'd never put them. The doctor's appointments that somehow got canceled without my knowledge. I'd show up to find no record of my booking, looking like a confused old man to the receptionist. The medications. Just last week, I'd opened my blood pressure prescription to find it replaced with something else entirely. When I'd mentioned it to David, he'd looked concerned and suggested that maybe I'd mixed up my pills myself. "It happens, Dad," he'd said gently. "Maybe we should talk about getting you some help around the house. More help than Mrs. Chen, I mean. Professional care." I'd been so focused on not wanting to be a burden, so determined to maintain my independence after Margaret's death, that I'd dismissed these incidents as the inevitable decline of aging. But they weren't random at all. They were calculated. "Mrs. Chen," I managed to say, "why are you telling me this?" She finally looked at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Because, Mr. Mitchell, in China, this happened to my mother, my older brother. He convinced everyone she is losing her mind. He put her in a home, sold her house, took all her money. My mother, she died 6 months later. Heart was broken. I was too far away, couldn't protect her. But I can protect you." Before I could respond, I heard David's voice behind me. "Dad, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." Mrs. Chen melted away into the crowd as David approached, his wife Jennifer beside him. My son looked successful in his tailored suit, his smile confident. He'd inherited Margaret's looks. Her blonde hair that was just starting to gray at the temples, her blue eyes. But looking at him now, I wondered if he'd inherited anything of her heart. "Having fun?" David asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. The gesture that should have felt warm now felt like a brand. "Just fine," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Listen, Dad, Jennifer and I have been talking. That house is getting to be too much for you, isn't it? All those stairs, that big yard. We found this amazing assisted living facility in North Vancouver. Waterfront views, great care, activities every day. We should go tour it next week." "I'm not interested," I said flatly. David's smile didn't waver. but something flickered in his eyes. Dad, be reasonable. You're 67. Mom's been gone 3 years. That house is too big for one person. And I have to be honest, I'm worried about you. The confusion, the missed appointments, the medication mix-ups. These are signs, Dad. Early dementia, maybe. We need to be proactive. I said, I'm not interested. We'll talk about it later, David said, his tone taking on that particular patience people use with children and the elderly. When you're thinking more clearly, he steered Jennifer away, and I stood there, gripping my champagne glass so hard I was surprised it didn't shatter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study, the one where Margaret and I used to read together in our matching leather chairs, and I started going through papers, bank statements, investment accounts, legal documents. Everything seemed in order, but then I found it, a document at the bottom of a drawer, one I didn't remember filing there, an application for conservatorship, partially filled out in David's handwriting. My name, his name, a doctor's signature I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I photographed it with my phone. I was 67, not 97. I had high blood pressure, well controlled with medication. I played golf twice a week, volunteered at the hospital, managed my own finances, cooked my own meals. There was nothing wrong with my mind, but David was building a case. And he was doing it methodically. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my daughter, Amy. We'd always been close, even though her nursing career and 3 kids kept her busy. Need to talk. Important. Can you come by tomorrow? Her response came within minutes. Of course, Dad. Is everything okay? No, I typed back. But it will be. Amy arrived the next morning, Sunday, with coffee and bagels from our favorite bakery. She was more like Margaret than David had ever been. Not in looks, but in spirit. Kind, observant, fiercely protective of the people she loved. Dad, you look terrible, she said, setting the food on the kitchen counter. Did you sleep at all? Amy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has David talked to you about me? About my health? My mental state? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. He mentioned he was worried, said you've been forgetting things, missing appointments. What else? He asked if I'd noticed any changes in you, if you seemed confused or disoriented when I visited. She paused. Dad, what's going on? I showed her everything. Mrs. Chen's photos of the house listing, the conservatorship paperwork. I told her about the medications, the canceled appointments, the missing keys. As I talked, I watched the color drain from her face. That son of a... She stopped herself, pressing her fingers to her temples. Dad, David's company is in trouble. His development project in Surrey, the one he's been so secretive about, it's underwater. He needs capital, needs it desperately. Mark, you know, my husband's cousin who works at the bank, he mentioned something about David coming in for emergency loans being denied. How much does he need? $2.5 million? Maybe more. The exact amount that could be freed up if I went into care and the house was sold. Dad, we need to talk to a lawyer, Amy said. Today, I already called Bill Thompson this morning, I said. Bill had been my lawyer for 30 years, had handled Margaret's estate, had golfed with me just last week. He's meeting us at his office in an hour. And Amy, I need you to know something. Whatever happens, whatever David has done, he's still your brother. I don't want this to destroy your relationship with him. He's trying to destroy you, Dad, she said quietly. He's trying to make you think you're losing your mind so he can steal everything you and Mom built. That's already destroyed any relationship we had. At Bill's office, surrounded by law books and the smell of old leather, we laid out everything. Bill listened without interruption, taking notes, his expression growing grimmer with each revelation. Robert, this is elder abuse, he finally said. Financial exploitation, possibly fraud. What David is doing, if we can prove it, is criminal. Can we prove it? I asked. Mrs. Chen's testimony would help. The photos she took. The listing that's up without your knowledge or consent. But we need more. We need to document every incident, every attempt at manipulation. And we need to move fast. Because once someone has conservatorship, It's very difficult to reverse. What do you suggest? Bill leaned back in his chair. We set a trap. Canadian Thanksgiving is in 3 weeks. What if you hosted dinner like you always do? But this time, we stack the deck. Invite David. Make him think everything is normal. But also invite me, perhaps as a family friend. Maybe Dr. Singh. You know he's semi-retired now, but he's known you for 20 years. People who can testify to your competency. And then we confront David with the evidence. At Thanksgiving dinner? Amy asked. Isn't that a bit dramatic? Sometimes dramatic is necessary, Bill said, and there's precedent for it. Family interventions work best when there are witnesses, when the accused can't later claim the conversation never happened or was misremembered. Plus, David will be off guard. He'll think he's coming to a normal family dinner. I thought about Margaret. She'd love Thanksgiving. The planning, the cooking, the family gathered around our big oak dining table. It felt wrong to use her favorite holiday for this. But then I thought about what David was trying to do, how he was willing to destroy his father's life, his independence, his dignity, for money. Margaret would have been heartbroken, and she would have wanted me to fight back. Let's do it, I said. The next 3 weeks were among the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal, had to interact with David as if I didn't know what he was planning. He came by twice, each time pushing harder for me to tour assisted living facilities, each time mentioning my supposed confusion and forgetfulness. Dad, I found these in the mailbox, he said during one visit, holding up 3 envelopes. You forgot to bring in your mail again. See, this is what I'm talking about. I hadn't forgotten. Mrs. Chen had checked the mail that morning, as she always did, but I couldn't prove it without revealing what I knew. You're right, I said instead. I must have forgotten. I hated the look of satisfaction in his eyes. Mrs. Chen became my secret ally. She documented everything, took photos, kept a detailed log of every time David came to the house, every strange occurrence. She also shared more about her mother's story, late one afternoon when we were sitting in the kitchen. Her name was May, Mrs. Chen said softly. She was a teacher, very sharp, very strong. But my brother, he was in debt, gambling. He needed her house money. So he started telling people she was forgetting things, mixing up names. He would hide her glasses, her keys, then act worried when she couldn't find them. Exactly what is happening to you. How long did it take? 6 months from when it started to when he had her declared incompetent. 6 months to destroy a lifetime of respect and independence. She died in the care home. They said it was heart failure. But I know it was a broken heart. She felt abandoned, betrayed by her own son. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. I can't imagine how painful that must have been. It's why I will not let it happen to you, Mr. Mitchell. When I took this job 12 years ago, Mrs. Margaret, she was so kind to me. When my husband got sick, when we had medical bills, she helped us. Never told you, but she paid for his surgery. Said it was a bonus, but I knew. She had a good heart. I cannot let her husband be treated this way. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd had no idea Margaret had done that, though it didn't surprise me. She'd always been generous, sometimes to a fault. After this is over, I said, I want to set up a scholarship fund in your mother's name for elderly care awareness, preventing elder abuse. Would that be okay? Mrs. Chen squeezed my hand. Mrs. Margaret would like that very much. Meanwhile, Bill was preparing. He'd contacted Dr. Singh, my physician of 20 years, who agreed to attend the dinner and bring recent medical records, proving I had no cognitive impairment. Bill also found the doctor whose signature was on David's conservatorship paperwork, a geriatric specialist named Dr. Wallace, whom I'd never met. Turned out David had paid him $500 for a preliminary assessment based solely on David's descriptions of my behavior. The doctor was mortified when Bill contacted him, admitted he'd never actually examined me, and agreed to provide a statement. Amy's husband, Mark, did some digging into David's finances. What he found was worse than we'd thought. David's development company had taken on too much debt, and the Surrey project had multiple liens against it. He owed money to contractors, to the bank, to private investors. He was drowning, and he'd clearly decided his father's assets were his life raft. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, David called. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Monday. Jennifer's parents want us to visit them this year. Would you mind if we skipped Thanksgiving at your place?" This wasn't part of the plan. I needed him there. "Actually, I would mind," I said. "I'm doing a big dinner this year. Amy's coming, the grandkids. I've invited Bill Thompson and Dr. Singh too. They've both lost their wives, you know. Seemed like the right thing to do. It would mean a lot to me if you were there." I could almost hear him calculating on the other end of the line. Skipping out would look suspicious, especially with Bill and Dr. Singh there, people who could potentially influence any future legal proceedings. "Of course, Dad," he said finally. "We'll be there. What time?" 3 o'clock. "And David? Bring your appetite. Your mother's recipes, you know. I'm making her famous turkey and all the fixings." Thanksgiving Monday arrived cold and gray. Typical October weather in Vancouver. Mrs. Chen had come in early to help with the cooking, though truthfully, I think we both needed the distraction. The house smelled like sage and roasting turkey, like butter and cinnamon from the pies cooling on the counter. It smelled like every Thanksgiving Margaret and I had ever hosted. I'd set the big oak dining table with Margaret's good china, the set we'd received as a wedding gift 45 years ago. 10 places. Mine at the head, Amy and Mark and their 3 kids, David and Jennifer, Bill Thompson, and Dr. Singh. Mrs. Chen had set a place too, though she'd protested. "You're part of this family," I'd told her firmly. "You'll eat with us." Amy arrived first with the kids, Noah, 10, Emma, 8, and little Sophie, 5. They were loud and energetic, the way children should be, filling the house with life. David and Jennifer showed up precisely at 3, David carrying an expensive bottle of wine, Jennifer looking elegant in a cashmere sweater. "Dad, the house looks great," David said, kissing my cheek. The gesture made my skin crawl. "Smells amazing, just like Mom used to make." "Mrs. Chen helped," I said. "She's been invaluable." I saw something flicker across David's face at that, though I couldn't read it. Did he know Mrs. Chen was the one who'd blown his plans wide open? Or was he just annoyed that I was giving credit to the help? Bill and Dr. Singh arrived together, and we all gathered in the living room for drinks before dinner. The conversation was easy, comfortable. The kids showed Dr. Singh their latest art projects. Bill and Mark talked hockey. David and Jennifer made small talk, though I noticed Jennifer kept checking her phone. At 4 o'clock, I called everyone to the table. The turkey was golden and perfect, surrounded by all the traditional dishes. Mashed potatoes, gravy, stuffing, cranberry sauce, roasted vegetables, fresh rolls, Margaret's recipes, Margaret's traditions. "Let's go around the table," I said after we'd all taken our seats. "Say what we're grateful for this year." I'll start. "I'm grateful for family, for health, and for the clarity to see what really matters." I looked directly at David as I said it. He smiled back, oblivious. We went around the table. Amy was grateful for her family and her father's strength. The kids were grateful for toys and hockey and art class. Bill was grateful for friendship. Dr. Singh for another year of good health. Mrs. Chen, tears in her eyes, was grateful for kind employers and second chances. When it got to David, he raised his wine glass. "I'm grateful for family," he said, "for the opportunity to take care of the people we love, even when it's difficult, even when they don't always understand what's best for them." The implied message was clear, and it took everything in me not to respond. "Not yet." "Jennifer?" I prompted. "I'm grateful for new beginnings," she said, "and for opportunities." We served the food, passed dishes, made the pleasant small talk of family dinners. The kids chattered about school and Halloween costumes. Bill told a funny story about a golf game. It almost felt normal, except for the tension I could feel building under the surface, like a storm about to break. I waited until dessert was on the table, pumpkin pie, and apple crisp, before I stood up. "Before we have dessert," I said, "there's something I need to address. David, 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Chen informed me that my house was listed for sale online without my knowledge or consent. She also told me that she'd seen you here with a real estate photographer." Would you like to explain that? The table went completely silent. David's face went pale, then red. Dad, I can explain. Please do. You're not thinking clearly. The listing was just exploratory, to see what the house might be worth for your future care. The costs of quality assisted living, they're substantial. I haven't agreed to assisted living. That's exactly my point. You're not making good decisions. The missed appointments, the confusion, the medication errors. Dad, I'm worried about you. We all are. We? I looked at Amy. She shook her head firmly. Don't include me in your lies, David. Amy, you've seen it too. The forgetfulness, the confusion. What I've seen, Amy said, her voice shaking with anger, is you manipulating our father. What I've seen is you gaslighting him to steal his house. That's ridiculous. I'm trying to help him. Dr. Singh, I said, turning to my physician. You've been my doctor for 20 years. Would you say I show signs of dementia or cognitive impairment? Dr. Singh set down his fork. I examined Robert just last week for his annual physical. His cognition is perfect. Memory, reasoning, executive function, all normal for his age. In fact, he's sharper than most 67-year-olds I see. That can't be right, David said desperately. Dr. Wallace said, Dr. Wallace, Bill Thompson interrupted, has provided us with a statement admitting that he never actually examined your father, that you paid him $500 for a preliminary assessment based solely on your descriptions. Descriptions we now know were fabricated. David stood up. This is insane. You're turning my family against me over a simple misunderstanding. Sit down, David, I said, and something in my voice made him obey. I found the conservatorship paperwork. The one you forged a doctor's signature on. I have photos of every time you came to this house and tampered with my belongings. Mrs. Chen documented everything. The keys you hid, the appointments you canceled using my name, the medications you switched. You're paranoid. This is exactly what I'm talking about, these delusions. Your company owes $2.5 million, I said. The exact amount you'd get if you sold this house. You're not worried about my health, David. You're desperate for money, and you're willing to destroy your father to get it. Jennifer stood up. We should go. Sit down, Jennifer, I said sharply. You were in on this too. Amy's husband saw you at the Realtor's office, picking out listings for new properties. You were already spending money from the sale of my house. The mask finally dropped from David's face. The concern, the false worry, all of it gone. What remained was cold anger. That house is worth over $3 million, and you're living in it alone. Mom's dead. You don't need all that space. It's selfish, Dad. Selfish to hoard assets when your family needs help. Your mother and I bought that house 42 years ago, I said quietly. We raised you in that house. She died in that house. And you want to sell it because you made bad business decisions? You want to rob me of my independence, my dignity, my home, because you can't manage your own money? I'm your son. I should inherit it anyway. Inherit it when I'm dead, sure. But I'm not dead, David. I'm very much alive. And thanks to your little scheme, I've had Bill update my will. Amy is now the executor and primary beneficiary. You get nothing. David's face contorted with rage. You can't do that. I already did. Bill? Bill pulled out a folder. These are the updated estate documents, signed last week. Also in here are statements from Dr. Singh, Dr. Wallace, Mrs. Chen, and several other witnesses documenting your attempts to fraudulently obtain conservatorship. If you contest the will or continue any action against your father, I will file a police report for elder abuse, financial exploitation, and fraud. These are criminal charges, David. You could go to prison. This is insane, Jennifer said. David, we're leaving. One more thing, I said. That conservatorship paperwork you filed? Bill had it dismissed this morning. You have no legal claim to any of my assets. No guardianship, no power of attorney, nothing. David stood there, shaking with fury or fear or both. I'm your son. How can you do this to me? How can I? I felt my voice break. David, You tried to convince me I was losing my mind. You tampered with my medications. You were willing to lock me in a care home and sell everything your mother and I built. You betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. How can you ask me how I can do this to you? We needed the money. The company, it's everything I've worked for. Then you should have asked for help. Like a son, like family. Instead, you decided to destroy me. David and Jennifer left without another word, walking out of the house, out of my life. The door closed behind them, and I sank into my chair, suddenly, exhausted. Amy came around the table and hugged me. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry he did this to you. Mrs. Margaret would be very proud of you," Mrs. Chen said softly. "You fought back. You didn't let him win." The rest of the dinner was subdued, but not entirely sad. The kids, who'd been unusually quiet during the confrontation, slowly started talking again. We ate pie. Bill told another golf story. Dr. Singh examined the kids' Halloween candy haul and made them laugh by declaring it a public health emergency due to excessive sugar content. Later, after everyone had left except Amy and Mrs. Chen, we sat in the living room nursing cups of tea. "What happens now?" Amy asked. "Now I live my life," I said. "I've arranged for Mrs. Chen to get a significant raise and a scholarship fund in her mother's name. Bill is helping me set up better legal protections, medical directives, all of it. And you and I will talk more regularly. I don't want to burden you, but I also don't want to be isolated enough that something like this could happen again." "You could never be a burden, Dad," Amy said. "You're my father. I love you." "What about David?" Mrs. Chen asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me hopes he'll get help, fix his business problems legitimately. Maybe someday apologize, and we can rebuild something. But right now, I need to protect myself, and I need to heal from the betrayal." Christmas that year was different, smaller. Amy and her family came, and Mrs. Chen joined us with her husband. We decorated the tree, cooked a feast, watched the kids open presents with that particular joy that only children can manage. David sent a card, no return address, just a generic Merry Christmas with his and Jennifer's signatures. No apology, no explanation. I put it in a drawer and didn't mention it. On New Year's Eve, I sat in my study, the one Margaret and I had shared, and I wrote her a letter. I don't know if the dead can read letters from the living, but it felt important to tell her what had happened, what David had tried to do, how I'd fought back. "I think you'd be disappointed in him," I wrote. "But I also think you'd be proud that I didn't just accept it, that I fought for my independence, my dignity. You always said I was too trusting, that I needed to be more suspicious. You were right." I folded the letter and put it in the box where I kept all the important things. Margaret's wedding ring, photos from our honeymoon, David's baby shoes, Amy's first report card. Life went on. I continued my volunteer work at the hospital, played golf twice a week, had dinner with Amy's family every Sunday. Mrs. Chen and I became closer friends than employer and employee had any right to be. Her husband taught me to cook proper Chinese food, and we'd spend Saturday afternoons in the kitchen, laughing at my clumsy attempts to fold dumplings. 6 months after that Thanksgiving confrontation, I got a call from Bill. David's company had filed for bankruptcy. He and Jennifer were divorcing. He'd moved into a rental apartment in Surrey and was working as a junior project manager for someone else's development firm. "He's asked if he can see you," Bill said. "Says he wants to apologize." "What do you think?" I asked. "I think that's entirely up to you. But if you do meet him, do it in a public place. And maybe bring Amy." I thought about it for a week. Finally, I called David and agreed to meet him at a coffee shop in Kitsilano, neutral territory. Amy insisted on coming, sitting at a nearby table where she could intervene if needed. David looked older, tired. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by off-the-rack business casual. His confidence had evaporated. "Dad," he said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. What I did was unforgivable. I was desperate. And I convinced myself that it was okay, that you wouldn't really mind, that assisted living would be good for you. But I was lying to myself. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I did it anyway." Why? I asked. That's what I can't understand. Why that way? Why not just ask for help? Pride, he said simply. I'd spent years telling everyone I was this big, successful developer. I couldn't admit I'd failed. And then I started thinking about the house, about how much it was worth, and it just seemed so wasteful for you to be there alone. I rationalized it, convinced myself I was actually doing you a favor. You tried to destroy me. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that about myself, knowing what I'm capable of. Jennifer couldn't live with it either. She said she married a good man and woke up next to a monster. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop was busy, full of students and young professionals. Life going on around us. I can't have you in my life right now, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not now. The trust is gone, David, and without trust, there's no relationship. I understand, he said. But Dad, thank you for stopping me, for fighting back. If you hadn't, I'd have done it. I'd have put you in that home and sold the house and spent the money and destroyed you. You saved me from becoming that person completely. You saved me from myself. He stood to leave, then paused. Mom would have been ashamed of me. Yes, I said honestly. She would have been. After he left, Amy came over and sat down. You okay? I think so. He's not asking for forgiveness. Not really. He's just acknowledging what he did. Maybe that's the first step. Maybe someday we can rebuild something. But not now. Not now, Amy agreed. That summer, we hosted the first annual Mei Chen Memorial Scholarship Award ceremony at the house. 5 students from UBC nursing program received scholarships for studying elder care and abuse prevention. Mrs. Chen gave a speech about her mother, about the importance of protecting our elderly, about how dignity and independence should never be stolen from those who've earned them. Standing in my backyard, watching the young students accept their awards, watching Mrs. Chen wipe away tears of pride rather than sorrow, I felt something shift. The betrayal would always be there, always be part of my story. But it wasn't the whole story. I was 68 now, healthy, independent, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me. I had my daughter and her family. I had friends. I had purpose. I had my house, the one Margaret and I had built our life in. And I had the knowledge that when someone tried to take all of that away, I'd fought back. I'd won. That night, I sat in my study and pulled out another piece of paper. Another letter to Margaret. We did it, I wrote. We raised one child who knows what love and loyalty mean. That's not a failure. That's a success. And I'm still here, still in our house, still living the life we built together. He tried to take that away, but he failed. I'm still here, my love. I'm still here. I folded the letter and put it in the box with all the others. Outside, the summer sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Margaret's favorite time of day. The house was quiet but not lonely. Tomorrow, Amy and the grandkids were coming for dinner. Next week, Mrs. Chen and I were going to try making Peking duck from scratch. Life wasn't perfect. Life was complicated and sometimes painful and full of betrayals I never saw coming. But it was my life, my independence, my choice. And no one, not even my own son, was going to take that away from me. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden Margaret had planted so many years ago. The roses she'd loved were blooming, red and pink and white against the green. Tomorrow, I'd cut some for the kitchen table, the way she used to do every summer evening. For now, I just stood there, in my house, in my life, victorious.